My father's grin spread wider as blood trickled down my chin in that parking lot. Security cameras recording everything. Mom had just said, "You deserve this," before her palm connected with my face. When the officer asked if I wanted to let this go for family's sake, I counted the camera angles visible from where I stood, 3 different feeds catching their assault. Perfect evidence. I touched the warm metal of their RV, the one they'd demanded I co-sign for, then let my hand drop. No. Officer. I want everything documented. My name is Avery Lane, and at 34 years old, I'd spent exactly half my life believing that love meant letting my parents drain me dry. That belief ended at 2:47 p.m. on a Saturday afternoon in the Grayford Shopping Center parking lot, when my mother's hand connected with my face hard enough to split my lip against my teeth. The taste of copper filled my mouth as I steadied myself against my Honda Civic's door handle. The asphalt radiated heat through my flats. That particular brand of suburban parking lot heat that smells like melting tar and desperation. My father, Roy, stood 3 feet away, hands loose at his sides, that small smile playing at the corners of his mouth like he'd just won something. My mother, Linda, was still talking, her voice pitched high with righteous indignation. $78,000. Avery, that's all. After everything we've done for you, and you can't even co-sign one loan. The loan documents were scattered on the hood of their Buick, held down by Linda's designer purse, a Coach bag I'd paid for last Christmas, though she'd told everyone at Sunset Haven Ministries that Roy had surprised her with it. The RV they wanted gleamed 2 spots over, a 30-foot Winnebago with "Adventure Awaits" painted in cursive on the side. Their retirement dream, they called it. My financial nightmare. I knew it to be. I said no, I repeated, my voice steady despite the blood I could feel gathering at the corner of my mouth. As head of contract compliance at Northbridge Systems, I'd learned to keep my voice level during confrontations. My credit can't take another hit from your missed payments. That's when Roy moved. Not dramatically, my father never did anything dramatically when sober. He simply stepped forward and shoved my shoulder, a casual violence that sent me stumbling backward into my car door. The side mirror caught my ribs, and I heard the crack before I felt it. Not the mirror that stayed intact. The sound came from inside me, something shifting that shouldn't shift. You ungrateful little... Linda's hand was already raised for another strike when the voice cut through the afternoon air. Ma'am, step back. A security guard, barely 25, stood 10 feet away with his phone raised. Behind him, a woman in yoga pants had her iPhone pointed at us, and I could see the red recording light. To my left, mounted on the light pole, a security camera's black dome reflected the entire scene. Roy's smile widened. He looked directly at the security camera, then at the guard, then back at me. Just a family discussion, he said, his tone suggesting we'd been debating dinner plans. My daughter's a little emotional about us moving away. The guard's phone didn't waver. I need to see some ID from everyone. I've already called Grayford PD. Linda's face cycled through expressions: shock, rage, then settling on wounded innocence. This is ridiculous. We're her parents. Tell him, Avery. Tell him this is just a misunderstanding. I touched my lip, looked at the blood on my fingertips, then met the guard's eyes. My name is Avery Lane. I work at Northbridge Systems on Meridian Avenue. These are my parents, Roy and Linda Lane. My mother just assaulted me, and my father shoved me into my car. I want every second of footage preserved. The smile finally dropped from Roy's face. By the time the police arrived, 2 officers in a patrol car that parked diagonally across 3 spaces, a small crowd had gathered. The woman with the iPhone turned out to be a paralegal named Jessica, who immediately offered to airdrop me her video. The security guard, whose name tag read Marcus, had already saved his footage to the cloud and called his supervisor about preserving the pole-mounted camera's recording. Officer Brennan, a tired-looking woman in her 40s, took my statement while her partner talked to my parents. I kept my answers factual, specific. The request for co-signing, my refusal, the slap, The shove. The smile. Your father smiled, Brennan asked, looking up from her notepad. At the camera, I said. He looked directly at it and smiled. 20 minutes later, Brennan returned from reviewing the security footage with Marcus's supervisor. The assault is clear on video, she said. Do you want to press charges? Before I could answer, Linda rushed over, Roy trailing behind. Avery, honey, please, we're family. This doesn't need to involve lawyers and courts. We can work this out at home. Roy's hand landed on my shoulder, gentle now, paternal. Your mother's sorry, we both are. Let's just forget this happened. I stepped away from his touch, noting how Brennan's hand moved to her radio. I want to press charges, I said, and I want a temporary restraining order. The parking lot fell silent except for the distant sound of shopping carts rattling across asphalt. Roy's jaw tightened, and for a second, I saw something flicker in his eyes that made my childhood memories suddenly make sense. Linda started crying, the kind of tears she'd perfected for church testimony Sundays. As the officers explained the next steps to my parents, I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. 3 checking accounts, 2 savings, 1 credit line, all joint accounts they'd convinced me to keep for emergencies. I screenshotted every balance, every transaction history going back 6 months. The last text from Roy sat in my messages. Sent 3 days ago. You deserve everything coming to you. He'd meant it as a threat about cutting me out of their wills if I didn't co-sign. I saved it to my cloud storage. Evidence has a funny way of changing meaning in context. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with 10 years of financial statements spread before me like evidence at a crime scene. The bruise on my ribs throbbed with each breath, but the pain kept me focused. I'd started pulling records at 8 p.m., and by 11:30, I had mapped out a decade of theft disguised as love. The pattern was elegant in its consistency. Every few months, a crisis would emerge. Dad's back surgery in 2015, except the insurance statements showed no surgery, just physical therapy he never attended. The $12,000 I'd paid went somewhere else. Mom's emergency gallbladder operation in 2017 turned out to be a tummy tuck and breast lift at a cosmetic surgery center in the next state. The receipts were right there in my email, forwarded from the clinic when I'd paid directly. But those were just the obvious lies. The real damage hid in the infrastructure of my financial life. Termite holes they'd been boring since I got my first real job at Northbridge. Credit card number 1. Opened when I was 24. To build your credit, honey. Maximum limit reached within 6 months on purchases I'd never made. A jet ski, casino charges in Atlantic City, $3,000 at a store called Luxury Leather, credit card number 2, the emergency card for Mom's medications. Funny how CVS receipts could total $800 monthly when Medicare covered her prescriptions. The student loan that materialized in 2019 supposedly for my continuing education, though I'd never enrolled in any program. $43,000 borrowed against my future for Roy's failed landscaping business, the equipment for which now rusted in their garage. I pulled up my banking app and found the recurring transfer I'd almost forgotten about $400 monthly to Sunset Haven Ministries, automatically deducted every first Sunday. Except when I logged into the church's donation portal with Mom's credentials password blessed 1952 never changed. The records showed donations of $50 monthly. The other $350 had been rerouting to a Bank of America account I didn't recognize. My phone buzzed. An email from First National Credit Union. Recent changes to property deed require your attention. My coffee mug hit the floor, ceramic exploding across the linoleum. The house. The house I'd grown up in, the one they'd promised to leave to me, the one justification for every financial sacrifice they were trying to add my name to the deed. Not as an inheritor, as a current owner. I called the credit union's 24-hour line. After 15 minutes of holds and transfers, a tired representative named Keith confirmed a quitclaim deed had been submitted adding me as co-owner, which would make me liable for the $47,000 home equity loan they'd taken out last month. The property taxes? The maintenance lines from the city for the collapsed fence and dead trees Roy refused to address. The documentation isn't complete, Keith said. We need your signature notarized before processing. Don't process anything, I said. That's fraud. I never agreed to this. While Keith documented my complaint, I opened another browser tab and started searching. Sunset Haven Ministries nonprofit filings were public record. Pastor Caleb's modest salary was listed at $180,000, not including the parsonage, car allowance, and love offerings. The building fund they'd been pushing, the one my parents constantly guilted me about not supporting, had raised $2.3 million. The actual construction costs filed with the city $950,000. I dug deeper. The LLC that owned the contracting company hired for the church expansion had two partners, Pastor Caleb and Roy Lane. My father, who claimed disability for his back, was listed as an active partner in a construction LLC. At 1:15 a.m., I found the smoking gun in my spam folder, an insurance document from Redmont Disability Services, forwarded from an address I didn't recognize. Roy had been collecting full disability for 5 years while working cash jobs for Redmont Paving. The investigator's notes were attached by accident. Subject observed lifting 80-pound bags of concrete. No apparent distress. Recommend surveillance continuation. They'd been investigating him for 3 months. I created a new folder on my cloud drive, Evidence. Subfolders, Financial Fraud, Insurance Fraud, Identity Theft, Church, Property. By 3 a.m., I had 247 documents uploaded, hashed, and backed up to 3 different services. The last thing I found was the worst. An email thread between Linda and her sister from 2 weeks ago, forwarded to me by accident when Mom meant to send a recipe. In it, they discussed my selfishness and how I'd never appreciated sacrifices. But the kicker was Linda's conclusion. Once we get her name on everything and transfer the debts, we can finally cut her off. She thinks she's so smart with her fancy job. Let's see how smart she is with a bankruptcy on her record. My laptop screen blurred. Not from tears I was past crying about them. The blur came from exhaustion and a kind of cold clarity that made everything sharp and distant simultaneously. They hadn't just been stealing from me. They'd been planning my complete financial destruction while smiling at Sunday dinners, while asking about my work, while hugging me goodbye. I picked up my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found the name I needed, Mariah Cortez, the attorney who'd handled Northbridge's last compliance audit. She'd mentioned she also did family law, had given me her card with a knowing look when I'd mentioned my parents during a coffee break. It was 3:27 am, too early to call, but I could send an email. Subject line, Urgent Identity Theft and Financial Fraud. Need immediate consultation. As I typed out the basics, my ribs ached with each keystroke. Tomorrow, today. Technically, everything would change. The bruises would fade. But the paper trail wouldn't. Roy had smiled at that camera, thinking he'd won something. He had no idea what he'd actually started. Mariah Cortez's office occupied the 3rd floor of a converted Victorian downtown, all exposed brick and modern steel fixtures. She'd cleared her lunch hour for me after reading my email, and now sat across her glass desk with the focused intensity of a surgeon planning a complex operation. 3 layers, she said, arranging printed copies of my evidence into distinct piles. Legal, financial, and public. We execute simultaneously. No warning shots. Are you prepared for what this means? I touched the fading bruise on my ribs. They've been destroying me slowly for 10 years. I'm ready to return the favor. Legally, Mariah began, sliding the first stack forward. The TRO is already in process from Saturday's assault. Judge Hoffman signed it this morning, 500 feet minimum distance. No contact through third parties. But that's just the start. We're filing criminal charges for identity theft, fraud over $10,000, and elder abuse. Elder abuse. They're the ones who, you're their financial caretaker on paper. They've been stealing from the person they listed as responsible for their welfare. It's a felony enhancement. She smiled, sharp as winter. Now, the beautiful part, the video from the parking lot shows Roy looking directly at the camera while committing assault. That demonstrates consciousness of guilt. He knew he was being recorded and didn't care. Juries hate that. The second pile was thicker. Financial warfare. First, we freeze everything. I've already contacted Experian Equifax and TransUnion for a complete credit freeze with fraud alerts. Nothing moves without your explicit consent. Second, we're filing disputes for every fraudulent account, the credit cards, the student loan, all of it. Third, she pulled out a highlighted document. Redmont Disability Services will be very interested to know Roy's been working construction while collecting full benefits. That's federal fraud. The reward for reporting it, 30% of recovered funds. How much would that be? 5 years of fraudulent benefits, plus penalties. You're looking at around $40,000 coming your way. The third pile was the smallest, but somehow felt the heaviest. Public pressure. Your parents built their identity on being pillars of the church community. We're going to crack that pillar. Mariah pulled up her laptop. My investigator found some interesting connections. Your father's construction LLC has been getting no-bid contracts from Sunset Haven Ministries. Pastor Caleb's been steering church funds to your dad's company at inflated rates. The congregation might want to know where their building fund actually went. I don't want to hurt the church members. They're not responsible for, they're victims too. Mariah interrupted. They deserve truth, but we're not going to the congregation first. We're going to the IRS. Churches lose tax-exempt status for self-dealing. Pastor Caleb knows this. Once he gets the audit notice, he'll throw your parents overboard to save himself. I processed this, watching dust motes drift through the afternoon sunlight streaming through her office windows. What about the house? The quitclaim deed. Already handled. I filed an emergency injunction this morning blocking any property transfers. I also notified First National Credit Union's fraud department. They've frozen the home equity loan pending investigation. She leaned back. Your parents woke up this morning to find their financial world locked. They just don't know it yet. My phone buzzed. 7 missed calls from Linda, 3 from Roy, despite the TRO explicitly forbidding contact. Mariah noted the violations in her tablet. Now, she continued, we need to discuss your extraction. You're on all their accounts, which means when this goes public, you could face initial scrutiny. We need you clean. Today, you're opening new accounts at a different bank. Transfer your salary deposits. Pull your legitimate funds from joint accounts. Document everything as yours with pay stubs. Leave them exactly $1.37 in each account. Why that amount? It prevents them from claiming you cleaned them out maliciously. It shows you took only what was yours. She slid a business card across the desk. This is James Frost, forensic accountant. He'll help trace every penny they stole. Legally documented for court. His retainer is $3,000. That's a lot. You'll make it back from the disability fraud reward alone, plus damages from the civil suit, plus the identity theft restitution. You're not spending money, Avery. You're investing in justice. That afternoon, I sat in a Chase Bank branch opening my first truly solo accounts. The banker, a young woman named Teresa, was efficient and understanding. When I explained I needed maximum security on the accounts, she didn't ask why. We can set up 2-factor authentication, verbal passwords, and flag the account for no telephonic changes, she said. Nobody accesses this without you physically present with ID. As she typed, I pulled out my laptop and initiated the salary transfer with Northbridge's HR. Effective immediately. My paychecks would route to Chase. I then logged into each joint account and transferred my documented portions, checking 3 $847.23s of my last 3 paychecks, leaving $137, savings 1, $5,923.10 of my bonus and tax refund, leaving $137, savings 2, $8,445.89 of my accumulated deposits over 2 years, leaving $137. By 4:30 p.m., I was financially invisible to them. That evening, I met with James Frost in his home office, a converted garage that smelled of coffee and old paper. He'd already started the forensic trace, following money through a web of transfers. Your parents were smart but not sophisticated, he said, pointing to a flowchart on his monitor. See this pattern church donation, immediate transfer to their personal account, then dispersed to credit cards. They thought the religious step would hide it, but digital footprints don't lie. We documented $312,000 stolen over 10 years, not including interest and lost investment potential. With damages and penalties, you're looking at close to $500,000 in restitution, James said. If they have assets, they have the house, the RV they're trying to buy, Roy's LLC. Then you'll recover something. Maybe not everything, but enough. As I drove home, my new bank card stiffened my wallet. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You ungrateful bitch. You'll regret this. Family is everything. Dad. Another TRO violation. Another screenshot for Mariah. Family is everything, he'd said. He was right. They'd taken everything from me in the name of family. Now I was going to show them what nothing felt like. Sunday service at Sunset Haven Ministries started at 10 a.m., but the real congregation happened in the parking lot afterward. That's where reputations were built and destroyed over coffee and righteous indignation. I knew because I'd stood in those circles for 15 years, smiling while Linda performed her weekly martyrdom. I didn't attend that Sunday, but my coworker Tessa did. She'd started going after I'd mentioned my parents' church, curious about the drama. Now she was my eyes inside, texting updates from the fellowship hall. Your mom's holding court by the coffee station, crying, says you've been corrupted by corporate culture. Pastor Caleb's asking for special prayers for families in crisis. No names, but everyone knows. Your dad just testified, said Satan's attacking through rebellious children. Got 3 amens? I sat in my apartment, cataloging evidence with James while my character was assassinated 3 miles away. Each text from Tessa was another nail in their coffin. They were establishing a pattern of defamation, violating the TRO's prohibition on third-party contact. By Monday, the narrative had solidified. According to the church email prayer chain which Tessa forwarded to me, I was mentally unstable, possibly on drugs, definitely under demonic influence. Linda had even suggested I might be having a lifestyle crisis, church code for being gay. Let them talk, Mariah said when I called her. Every lie they spread is ammunition for our defamation suit. But Tuesday brought escalation. I arrived at work to find my manager, David, waiting with HR. Avery, we've received some concerning calls, David said carefully. Your parents contacted us claiming you're having a mental health crisis. They suggested you might be embezzling. The blood drained from my face. They what? They said you've been acting erratically, that you attacked them, and they're worried you might be stealing from the company to fund drug habits. I pulled out my phone, showed them the parking lot video. David watched Roy's smile. Linda's slap. My bloody lip. HR took notes. I'm the head of contract compliance, I said steadily. Run any audit you want. Check every transaction. I'm the one who catches embezzlement, not commits it. We know, David said. Your record's impeccable, but we had to follow protocol and inform you. We've also documented their calls as harassment. Would you like security to be aware? By Wednesday, the smear campaign had reached Facebook. Linda's post was a masterpiece of manipulation. Please pray for our family. Our daughter, who we raised with such love, has turned against us. We only wanted to spend our retirement traveling, seeing God's creation, but she's become consumed by greed. She's taken everything from us, even filed false police reports. We're heartbroken but trusting in the Lord's plan. Maybe losing a child is our cross to bear. Honor thy father and mother seems forgotten in this generation. 53 comments in 2 hours. Church members offering prayers, condemning me, praising my parents' strength. But also 3 private messages to me from congregation members who'd noticed discrepancies. Mrs. Patterson wondered why they needed a loan if I'd supposedly taken everything. Tom Bradley questioned how they afforded Linda's new designer wardrobe during such hardship. Sarah Mills, the church treasurer's assistant, simply wrote, I know about the building fund. Be careful. Pastor Caleb called me Wednesday evening, despite the TRO explicitly naming him as a prohibited third party. Avery, this needs to stop, he said, voice smooth as oil. Your parents are pillars of our community. Whatever family squabble you're having, are you aware you're violating a restraining order by calling me silence? Are you also aware that the IRS received a report about Sunset Haven's financial irregularities yesterday, specifically about no-bid contracts to Roy's LLC? The silence stretched longer. I don't know what you think you know. I know Roy's been collecting disability while working for cash. I know the building fund is inflated by $1.3 million. I know you and Roy have been splitting the difference. Would you like me to continue? He hung up. Thursday brought desperation, unable to access their frozen accounts. My parents had resorted to a GoFundMe, help Roy and Linda Lane rebuild after family betrayal. The description painted me as a prodigal daughter who'd stolen their retirement and fabricated abuse claims. Goal $50,000. They raised $6,000 in one day from church members, but every donation was evidence. Fraud, since they were lying about the circumstances. Defamation, since they named me explicitly. Wire fraud, since it crossed state lines. It's beautiful, Mariah said, reviewing the screenshots. They're committing federal crimes in real time. The FBI's white-collar division will love this. Friday was quiet. Too quiet. Until Tessa texted at 4:17 p.m. Emergency church meeting tonight. Mandatory for all members. Pastor says it's about protecting the flock from wolves. Then another text. Your parents just pulled up in a brand new RV. How? I called James immediately. He checked the liens and registrations. They found a predatory lender, he said. 32% interest. Linda's sister as co-signer. The RV's already worth less than they owe. They're drowning and still buying toys. They're maintaining the image. It's all they have left. That evening, as Sunset Haven held its emergency meeting, I sat with Mariah finalizing our civil suit. Defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, fraud, identity theft. We were asking for $500,000 in damages plus punitive awards. When do we file? Monday, she said. But there's something else. The IRS visited Pastor Caleb yesterday. He's cooperating fully. Your parents are about to lose their only ally. My phone lit up with texts from Tessa. Pastor just announced an audit. Says some members have been misusing church resources. He didn't name names, but everyone's looking at your parents. Your dad just stood up and called Pastor Caleb a Judas. Security's escorting them out. This is better than Netflix. I set my phone aside and looked out my apartment window at the city lights. Somewhere out there, my parents were discovering what happened when the masks came off. Their church family was abandoning them. Their accounts were frozen. Their crimes were documented. They'd thought they were untouchable, protected by the shield of parental authority and religious respectability. But shields only work if you don't hand your enemies the sword. Sunday's Family Honor Day was in 9 days. They still thought they'd stand on that stage and reclaim their narrative. They had no idea what was coming. The restraining order hearing was set for 9 a.m. Monday at the Redmont County Courthouse. I arrived at 8:30 to find my parents already there, flanked by their bargain attorney in a suit that had seen better decades. Linda wore her best church dress, the navy one with pearls. Roy had squeezed into his wedding suit, the buttons straining. Judge Patricia Hoffman presided, a woman known for having zero tolerance for courtroom theatrics. Mariah had smiled when we drew her name. We're here regarding the temporary restraining order filed by Ms. Avery Lane against Roy and Linda Lane. Judge Hoffman began. I've reviewed the initial filing and the video evidence. Ms. Lane, please present your case. Mariah stood. Your Honor, we have documented footage from 3 angles showing assault and battery in a public space. We also have 17 violations of the existing TRO via text, phone calls, and third-party contact through Pastor Caleb Winters. She connected her laptop to the courtroom screen. The parking lot video played in high definition. Linda's slap echoed through the speakers. Roy's shove was brutal in slow motion. but it was the zoom on his face, that satisfied smile as he looked directly at the security camera, that made the bailiff shift uncomfortably. Additionally, Mariah continued, the defendants have engaged in a campaign of harassment and defamation. She displayed the Facebook posts, the GoFundMe, the emails to my employer. They've attempted to destroy Miss Elaine's reputation and career while fraudulently raising money based on lies. Roy's attorney, a sweating man named Gerald Fisk, stood, Your Honor, this is a family dispute blown out of proportion. These parents are heartbroken. Their daughter has stolen from them. Do you have evidence of theft? Judge Hoffman interrupted. Well, she withdrew money from joint accounts to which she was a legal party. Yes, but... Then it's not theft. Continue. Fisk fumbled with his papers. The video doesn't show the full context. Avery Lane was being disrespectful, refusing to help her elderly parents. I'm 58, Roy blurted out. Judge Hoffman's eyes narrowed. Mr. Lane, you'll speak only when addressed. Mr. Fisk, are you arguing that disrespect justifies physical assault? No, Your Honor, but... I've seen enough. Judge Hoffman turned to my parents. Mr. and Mrs. Lane, please stand. They rose slowly, Linda clutching Roy's arm. The temporary restraining order is granted for 1 year. You are to maintain a distance of 500 feet from Ms. Lane at all times. No contact, direct or indirect. This includes through third parties, social media, or any electronic means. Violation will result in immediate arrest and criminal charges. But she's our daughter, Linda cried. A fact that makes your behavior more reprehensible, not less. Judge Hoffman's voice was ice. I'm also referring this case to the district attorney for criminal assault charges. Furthermore, any attempts to circumvent this order will be considered aggravated stalking. Am I clear? Roy's face had turned purple. This is ridiculous. We're her parents. We have rights. Your rights ended when your fist connected with her body. Mr. Lane, one more outburst and you'll be held in contempt. As the judge continued outlining the restrictions, my phone vibrated with a text from James. IRS just froze your parents' assets pending investigation. Church too. After court, I sat in Mariah's office as she filed our civil suit electronically. With the RO in place, we can proceed aggressively. They can't contact you to intimidate or negotiate. What about the criminal charges? The DA will move forward. With the video evidence, it's a slam dunk. Your father's looking at minimum 6 months, possibly a year. Your mother, probation and community service. That afternoon, chaos erupted. The IRS audit of Sunset Haven had triggered a forensic accounting review. Pastor Caleb, trying to save himself, had provided records showing Roy's LLC had overcharged the church by nearly $400,000 over 3 years. The congregation was demanding answers. By evening, the GoFundMe had been flagged for fraud and frozen. Donors were being notified that their contributions were under review. Tuesday brought more consequences. Redmont Disability Services, acting on the fraud report, had suspended Roy's benefits and initiated recovery proceedings. 5 years of fraudulent payments at $2,847 monthly, plus penalties and interest, totaled $241,000 owed. Linda called me from a blocked number at 11:43 p.m., sobbing. Avery, please. We're going to lose everything. The house is being foreclosed. They're repossessing the RV. Your father might go to jail. How can you do this to us? I hung up and forwarded the recording to Mariah. Another RO violation. Wednesday. The arrests came. Not for the assault for the restraining order violations. 17 documented breaches meant Roy and Linda were held without bail pending a hearing. I watched from my office window as the police car pulled into the courthouse. My parents in the back seat. Thursday's newspaper ran the story on page 3. Local couple arrested in family dispute. Church financial scandal widens. The article connected the dots between the assault, the fraud, and the church investigation. Comments online were brutal. I always knew something was off about them. Poor Avery. Imagine having parents like that. They smiled in church every Sunday while stealing from everyone. The district attorney's office called Friday afternoon. Ms. Lane, we're prepared to offer your parents a plea deal. Your father 8 months incarceration, 2 years probation. Your mother 6 months house arrest, 3 years probation. Both would plead to felony fraud and assault. They'd also have to pay full restitution. What if they don't take it? Trial. With the evidence you've provided, they're looking at 3 to 5 years each. That evening, their attorney called Mariah. They wanted to negotiate. They'll take the criminal plea if Avery drops the civil suit, Fisk proposed. Mariah laughed. No. The civil suit proceeds regardless. Your clients committed identity theft, fraud, and assault. They'll pay criminally and civilly. They have no assets left. They have the house. And wages can be garnished for 20 years. Saturday morning, I drove past Sunset Haven. A sign announced the Sunday service was canceled due to ongoing restructuring. The parking lot was empty except for one car, Pastor Caleb's Mercedes, soon to be seized by the IRS. The Family Honor Day was tomorrow. The stage still stood in the new parking lot, banners wilting in the heat. Instead of my parents being celebrated, they'd be sitting in county jail. Their empire of lies collapsed. My phone rang. David from work. Avery, I wanted you to know we've completed our audit. Your accounts are pristine. In fact, you've saved the company nearly $1 million in caught discrepancies over your tenure. We're promoting you to Senior Director of Compliance, effective Monday. 30% raise. I sat in my car, watching the empty church, and felt something I hadn't expected, not satisfaction, not revenge fulfilled, but simple relief. The weight I'd carried for 10 years was finally lifting. Tomorrow would bring the final act, the public revelation. But tonight, for the first time in a decade, I'd sleep without checking my bank balance, without fearing the next emergency call, without the weight of their love crushing my spine. Saturday evening, 6:45 p.m., the parking lot of Sunset Haven Ministries hummed with preparation for tomorrow's Family Honor Day. Volunteers strung lights between poles. The rental company assembled the final rows of white folding chairs, the LED screen 30 feet wide. Crystal clear resolution stood behind the stage like a digital altar. I sat in my car across the street, laptop open, watching through binoculars as the audio-visual team ran cable. The company they'd hired was Pro Event Solutions. I knew because I'd called them 3 days ago. Hi. This is Avery Lane from Sunset Haven. I'm coordinating the Family Honor Day event, and I need to confirm our AV package includes full screen control capabilities. Yes, Ms. Lane. The premium package includes wireless presentation control, video playback, and emergency broadcast override. You'll have the control tablet, correct. Actually, there's been a change. I'll be managing technical coordination. Can you add me to the authorized users? Sure thing. Just need the contract number. I'd read it off the paperwork I'd photographed weeks ago when it was left on the church secretary's desk. My name was now on the access list. Mariah had been very specific about the legality. You can't hack or break in, but if you have legitimate access through your previous role, and if what you display is factual evidence in a public forum, you're protected, especially since it's evidence in an ongoing criminal case that's already public record. The private investigator she'd hired, Marcus Dell, was already in position. He'd been surveilling Roy for the disability fraud case, but tonight he had a different purpose. Despite being in county jail, my parents had been released on signature bonds that morning for the event Pastor Caleb had pulled strings, claiming they needed to attend for community healing, the condition they couldn't approach within 500 feet of me. Marcus texted, "Subjects arrived. Roy's unloading equipment from a truck, lifting speakers, pulling cables, no sign of back problems, recording everything." I pulled up the evidence files on my laptop. The parking lot assault video, now part of public court record. The screenshots of text violations submitted as evidence. The GoFundMe fraud page documented in the criminal complaint. All public, all legal to display. The forensic accountant's report was trickier, but Mariah had found a workaround. The summary page had been included in the civil filing, making it public record. The IRS investigation findings had been announced in a press release. Pastor Caleb's cooperation agreement had been leaked to the newspaper. By 8 p.m., the setup was complete. I drove to the Pro Event Solutions warehouse, where Jake, the technician, handed me the control tablet. "Big presentation tomorrow." "The biggest," I said. "Family videos, testimonials, that kind of thing." "The screen's all yours. Just hit the override button and whatever's on your tablet displays on the LED. Range is about 300 feet. Perfect." Just outside the restraining order boundary, I spent the night in my apartment, organizing the files into a presentation. No commentary needed, the evidence spoke for itself. Timestamp everything. Include case numbers. Let the truth be its own violence. Sunday morning broke clear and hot. By noon, cars filled the church parking lot and spilled onto side streets. The Family Honor Day was Sunset Haven's biggest annual event, drawing 500 people for barbecue, hymns, and testimony. I parked at the strip mall 300 feet away, sightline clear to the stage. Marcus was in the crowd, camera ready. Tessa had recruited 4 friends to attend, all recording from different angles. Every second would be documented. At 1 p.m., Pastor Caleb took the stage. His usual swagger was diminished, shoulders tight. The IRS investigation had humbled him, but he played his part. "Welcome to Family Honor Day. Today we celebrate the bonds that hold us together through trials and tribulations." The crowd applauded. My parents sat in the front row. Linda in a new dress she couldn't afford. Roy in the same straining suit from court. They held hands, performing unity. Today, we have a special testimony from the Lane family, pillars of our community who've faced recent challenges but stand strong in faith. Roy climbed the steps. His disabled back showed no strain as he adjusted the microphone. Behind him, the LED screen displayed the church logo. "Family is everything," Roy began, his voice carrying across the parking lot. "Linda and I have learned that sometimes those we love most can hurt us deepest. But forgiveness." I pressed override. The screen flashed to the parking lot video. Roy's smile filled 30 feet of LED as his fist connected with my body. The slap echoed through the PA system. The crowd gasped. Roy spun around, saw himself on screen, that satisfied smirk in high definition. "Turn it off," he shouted, but the video continued. The shove. Me hitting the car, blood on my chin, his smile widening as he looked at the security camera. The screen changed. Screenshots of texts. "You ungrateful bitch. You'll regret this. Family is everything," each with RO violation case numbers. Then the GoFundMe page. "Help Roy and Linda Lane rebuild after family betrayal." Amount raised $6,000. Criminal fraud case. Laws 24, CF 8847. Roy rushed toward the AV booth. The screen switched to new footage Marcus's surveillance from yesterday. Roy lifting an 80-pound speaker, hauling equipment, bending, twisting, carrying. The timestamp clear one day after claiming total disability in court. The disability fraud notice appeared $241,000 owed. Criminal investigation pending. Linda stood, screaming something lost in the crowd's noise. The screen showed bank statements, church donations redirected to personal accounts, $400,000 stolen from building funds. IRS case, NAR 2024, EO 44923. Pastor Caleb tried to cut the power, but the screen ran on battery backup. The forensic accounting summary filled the display. 10 years of theft documented in clinical detail. $312,000 stolen from their daughter. Identity theft. Fraud. Elder abuse charges. 2 police cars pulled into the lot. Someone had called 911 about a disturbance. But Marcus stepped forward, badge visible, directing them to Roy, who was now trying to topple the screen. "Roy Lane, you're in violation of a restraining order. This event is within 500 feet of your daughter." "She's not here," Roy shouted. Marcus pointed to the church secretary's attendance list. where my name still appeared as AV coordinator, a role I'd held for 3 years before the assault. The screen displayed one final image, the civil suit filing. $500,000 in damages sought. Every crime listed. Every piece of evidence cataloged. Then the screen went black. The parking lot erupted. Church members surrounded my parents, but not in support. Questions, accusations, demands for their donated money back. Pastor Caleb was on his phone with his lawyer. The police were checking distances with a measuring wheel. 490 feet from where Roy stood to where I sat in my car. 10 feet inside the violation zone. They handcuffed him as Linda collapsed onto the asphalt, her performance finally genuine. The August heat radiated off the parking lot in waves that made everything shimmer like a mirage. The Family Honor Day banner tore loose in a sudden wind, sailing over the crowd like a surrender flag. Marcus would later testify that Roy's first words after arrest were, "That bitch planned this." He was right. I had planned this. Every detail, every angle, every legally protected revelation. The LED screen blazed back to life. And this time, I wasn't even touching the controller. Jake from Pro Event had programmed an automatic sequence if the first presentation ended. The backup would play on loop until manually stopped at the control booth. Roy was halfway to the police car when his own voice boomed across the parking lot from the speakers. "Your mother's sorry. We both are. Let's just forget this happened." Then my voice, clear and steady. "I want to press charges. And I want a temporary restraining order." The body camera footage from Officer Brennan played next, zoomed in on Roy's face as he realized the assault had been captured from multiple angles. His micro-expressions were devastating in 30-foot clarity, the split second of panic, then calculation, then that terrible confidence that he could still talk his way out. "Dad grinned," I whispered from my car, watching him struggle against the handcuffs. Then Linda made her move. She ran toward the AV booth, her church dress tearing at the seam as she tried to climb the platform stairs. "This is lies, all lies. She's destroying us because we wouldn't give her money." The screen switched to Linda's Facebook post. Each word enormous. "She's taken everything from us." Below it, the forensic accountant's summary. $312,000 transferred from Avery Lane's accounts to Roy and Linda Lane over 10 years. Marcus Dell stepped forward with another officer, intercepting Linda. Ma'am, you're also in violation of the restraining order. This venue is within the prohibited distance." I didn't know she was here. The screen showed an email from Linda to the church events committee from Thursday. "Avery will probably try to ruin Family Honor Day. She's vindictive like that, but we won't let her steal our joy." She'd known. They'd both known I'd be involved somehow. Their arrogance had convinced them I wouldn't dare. Pastor Caleb grabbed the microphone, trying to restore order. "Everyone, please, let's—" The sound system crackled, then played a recorded phone call. His voice, threatening me. "Your parents are pillars of our community, whatever family squabble you're having." My response, "Are you aware you're violating a restraining order by calling me—" Then the killing blow. Pastor Caleb's nervous voice. "The IRS investigation was initiated by someone in this congregation. When I find out who—" The recording cut. The implication hung in the air like smoke. The pastor who'd preached about truth and transparency had threatened a whistleblower. The screen went dark for 3 seconds. When it returned, it showed a single document, IRS Form 211, the whistleblower reward claim. Form. My name was redacted, but the violation amount was clear: $1.4 million in church funds misappropriated. Potential reward to whistleblower $420,000. The congregation exploded, not shouting worse. Cold, purposeful movement. The finance committee members walked straight to Pastor Caleb. The elder board surrounded him. Someone was already on the phone with the district superintendent. Roy had reached the police car, but he turned back to look at the stage one last time. The screen lit up with his text message, "You deserve this." Then it showed my bank statement from after the parking lot assault. Balance after securing my assets, $18,194.37. Then the civil suit filing. Then the estimated recovery from all claims $500,000 in civil damages, $40,000 in disability fraud rewards, $420,000 in IRS whistleblower rewards. "You deserve this," appeared again in his handwriting. Yes, I did. Linda broke free from the officer's grip and ran not away, but straight toward where she thought I was, behind the AV booth. "Avery, Avery, look what you've done. Look at me." But I wasn't there. I was exactly 501 feet away, just outside the legal boundary, invisible in my mundane sedan among dozens of others. She screamed at empty air while 3 cameras captured her breakdown. The screen showed one more thing, a split screen. On the left, my parents at last year's Family Honor Day, receiving an award for exemplary Christian parenting. On the right, the assault video, freezing on Roy's grin. Then nothing. The presentation ended. The screen defaulted to a calm blue with the Pro Event Solutions logo. The silence lasted maybe 5 seconds. Then the questions started, the accusations, the demands. Church members who'd donated to the GoFundMe wanted their money back. Those who'd hired Roy's construction company were calling lawyers. The entire congregation was fracturing in real time. Roy was in the patrol car now, his face visible through the window, no longer smiling. Linda was being handcuffed, still screaming about ungrateful children and stolen futures. Pastor Caleb stood alone on the stage, his empire collapsing, knowing the IRS would take everything. Marcus texted me, "Got it all, every second, multiple angles." Tessa texted, "This is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." Mariah texted, "Legal masterpiece. They violated RO in front of 500 witnesses. Prosecutor says they're adding felony stalking charges." I started my car, driving slowly past the chaos. Through my rearview mirror, I saw the banner one more time. Family Honor Day, Love and Discipline. The RV they'd tried to force me to co-sign for sat at the lot's edge, already tagged with a repossession notice. Someone had spray-painted fraud across the Adventure Awaits decal. As I turned onto Main Street, my phone buzzed with an automated email from the bank. The last joint account one I'd forgotten about. An old CD worth $887 had just matured. I pulled over and transferred it all to my Chase account, leaving exactly 137s. The investigation would continue for months. The criminal trials would be public. The civil suit would drain every asset they'd hidden. But the war was over. They'd aimed for my destruction and achieved their own. I merged onto the highway as the church bells rang 2 p.m., their sound carrying across Grayford like a death knell. In my rearview mirror, smoke rose from the parking lot. Someone had set the Family Honor Day banner on fire. I didn't smile. This wasn't about joy. It was about justice, served at exactly the right temperature cold, calculated, and comprehensive. Roy had grinned at that security camera, thinking he'd won. Then he learned what losing really looked like. The signature came easy, my hand steady despite the adrenaline still coursing through my veins. I signed the final civil suit document on the hood of Marcus Dell's unmarked car, the metal still warm from the August sun. The pen, a heavy Mont Blanc that Mariah had handed me, moved across the paper in clean strokes. Avery Lane, Plaintiff, 3:27 p.m., Sunday, August 18th. Behind us, the chaos continued to unfold. The parking lot had become a crime scene, yellow tape sectioning off the area where Linda had collapsed. 2 ambulances had arrived, one for a church elder who'd fainted, another for Linda, who was hyperventilating in the back of the patrol car. Roy sat in a separate vehicle, his head down, finally understanding that some mistakes can't be smiled away. "That's it," Mariah said, taking the papers. "With the restraining order violations in front of 500 witnesses, the criminal case is ironclad. The civil suit." She smiled, sharp as winter. "They'll be paying you back for the rest of their lives." I nodded but said nothing. There were no words left. 10 years of theft, manipulation, and gaslighting had ended in 10 minutes of truth projected on a screen they'd paid for with stolen money. The poetry of it wasn't lost on me. Marcus handed me a USB drive. Every second of footage from today. 3 angles on Roy lifting equipment yesterday. 4 angles on the meltdown today. The prosecutor's going to have a field day. I pocketed the drive and walked back toward my car. The crowd was dispersing now, families hurrying to their vehicles, heads down, phones out. The story would be all over social media within hours. By tomorrow, it would make regional news. Church scandal erupts at family event. Parents arrested after daughter's elaborate sting operation. IRS investigation expands following public revelation. As I passed the RV, I couldn't resist. I touched the metal one more time, feeling its sun-heated surface burn my fingertips slightly. The adventure awaits. Decal was peeling at the corners, cheap like everything else about my parents' dreams built on lies, funded by theft, destined to collapse. The repossession notice fluttered in the wind. Someone had added a second notice, an IRS asset seizure warning. By Monday morning, this symbol of their retirement dreams would be gone, hauled away to auction. I let my hand drop and kept walking. Tessa intercepted me at my car. "Avery, that was—" She paused, searching for words. "That was justice. Pure justice." "It was necessary," I corrected, sliding into the driver's seat. She leaned against my window. "What now? They're going to prison. You're going to get your money back. The church is imploding. You won." I started the engine, the Honda purring to life, reliable, honest, paid for with my own money. Now I live. For the first time in 10 years, I just live. The highway stretched ahead, leading away from Grayford, away from Sunset Haven, away from the smoking ruins of my parents' reputation. I didn't look back. There was nothing there for me anymore. No guilt, no obligation, no twisted love demanding payment in blood and dollars. My phone sat in the cup holder, silent for once. No desperate texts from Linda, no threatening calls from Roy, no flying monkeys from the church begging me to forgive, to forget, to fund their delusions one more time. Just silence. Beautiful, expensive silence. At the city limits, I pulled over one last time. From this elevation, I could see the church in the distance, the parking lot still full of flashing lights. The LED screen was dark now, but its job was done. Every crime witnessed, every lie exposed, every dollar accounted for. I thought about Roy's grin in that parking lot 2 weeks ago. How certain he'd been that I would crumble, that I would pay, that I would always be the daughter who confused abuse with love. He'd looked at that security camera like he was inviting it to watch him win, but he'd forgotten something crucial. I was his daughter. He'd taught me to be ruthless, to take what I wanted, to smile while drawing blood. He'd just never imagined I'd learn those lessons so well. The sun was setting now, painting the sky in shades of orange and red that looked like fire. Appropriate, I thought. Everything behind me was burning, but I wasn't looking back. I merged onto the interstate, accelerating toward whatever came next. My bank account was my own. My credit was protected. My parents were someone else's problem now, the state's problem, the IRS's problem, their own problem. Never again mine. The last text I'd ever send them had been simple: "You deserve this." Because they did. Every arrest, every charge, every penny of restitution, every day they'd spend in prison, thinking about how they'd destroyed themselves trying to destroy me. I drove toward the sunset, windows down, the hot August air whipping through the car. In my rearview mirror, Grayford disappeared, reduced to a dark smudge against the horizon. Somewhere in that smudge, my parents were being processed, photographed, fingerprinted. Somewhere, Pastor Caleb was meeting with lawyers. Somewhere, church members were realizing how thoroughly they'd been deceived. But here, in this car, on this highway, there was only me, Avery Lane, 34 years old, Senior Director of Compliance, survivor, winner. The road stretched endlessly ahead, each mile taking me further from who I'd been forced to be and closer to who I chose to become. No more joint accounts, no more emergency calls, no more guilt disguised as love. Just me, my choices, and a future that belonged to no one else. I touched the warm spot on my ribs where the bruise had been, now faded to nothing. The physical wounds had healed. The financial wounds were being treated by lawyers and accountants. The emotional wounds, those would take time. But I had time now. Time that was mine, bought back with interest from the people who'd stolen it. The speedometer crept up to 75. The engine hummed. The sun disappeared completely, leaving only the purple afterglow of dusk. And still I drove, chasing the horizon, leaving the ashes behind. My parents had wanted me to pay for their dreams. Instead, they'd paid for their nightmares. Every last penny. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where in the world you're listening from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this story of justice served cold resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. Have you ever had to stand up to family members who crossed the line? Let me know in the comments. Your support means everything, and I'll see you in the next story.